At 87, Morgan Freeman's presence still commands respect, but there's a noticeable shift. The man who once appeared unstoppable now spends much of his time away from the public eye, leading many to question what led to this retreat for a legend of his stature. Join us as we take a closer look at the life of one of Hollywood's most iconic figures. Humble beginnings. Morgan Freeman was born on June 1, 1937, in Memphis, Tennessee. His life didn't begin with the lights of Hollywood or the comfort of money. Instead, he was born into a world where just getting by was the goal each day. His family was poor and times were hard. His father worked as a barber and his mother was a cleaner. They didn't have much and their life were full of uncertainty. They moved often, searching for better chances, living in places like Greenwood, Mississippi, and other small towns. He grew up in the South during a time when segregation and racism were deeply rooted in society. That reality shaped much of his early view of the world. He was raised in a strict household, especially after his father left. His mother took on the burden of raising the children alone. But even in these hard times, something inside young Morgan was growing. His interest in acting. He would often find himself in school plays, using his voice and presence to bring characters to life. At the age of 9, he played the lead role in a school production and got his first real taste of performing. It was something that made him feel alive. But acting wasn't his first dream. Like many boys at the time, Freeman was fascinated by flying. He wanted to be a pilot and had strong dreams of joining the military. After finishing high school in 1955, he turned down a drama scholarship to Jackson State University to enlist in the United States Air Force. He hoped to one day sit in the cockpit of a fighter jet, but things didn't turn out the way he imagined. While serving, Freeman was assigned to work as a radar technician rather than flying planes. Over time, he realized that the military wasn't the path he truly wanted. He later said that he was more in love with the idea of being a pilot than the actual experience of it. After 4 years, he left the Air Force and returned to civilian life, ready to follow a new path, acting. Stepping into the world of acting wasn't easy. The early years of Freeman's career were filled with struggle. He moved to Los Angeles and then to New York City, trying to find his place in a very competitive industry. He took acting classes and worked whatever jobs he could find to support himself. These were not glamorous jobs. He worked as a dancer at the 1964 World's Fair and even did voice work for small gigs when he could find them. He also performed in off-Broadway productions, slowly building his experience and finding small ways to stay connected to the world of performance. These years tested him. Roles were scarce, especially for black actors. He faced rejection often. Casting directors overlooked him, and he often had to settle for background roles or small parts that barely paid. But Freeman didn't give up. His passion for acting and his deep, commanding voice kept him pushing forward. Even though fame was still far away, the story of Morgan Freeman was already taking shape. One audition, one performance, and one challenge at a time. Next, things finally start to shift as Hollywood begins to notice him, slowly but surely. A late bloomer's breakthrough. Morgan Freeman is one of those actors people recognize instantly, whether by face or voice. But his journey to that level of recognition took a very long time. He didn't become a household name overnight. In fact, he spent decades working in small roles, often going unnoticed by the mainstream. While many actors find success in their 20s or 30s, Freeman had to wait until his 50s to truly break through. This long road to fame wasn't easy, but it shaped the calm, grounded, and powerful presence he became known for. During the 1970s, he found a steady job on a children's television show called The Electric Company. It was produced by the same team behind Sesame Street and aimed to help kids learn how to read. On the show, Freeman played a variety of characters, including Easy Reader and Vincent the Vegetable Vampire. These roles were fun, playful, and important in their own way, especially to younger audiences. While The Electric Company gave him exposure, it didn't bring him the kind of recognition most actors hope for. Freeman later said he was grateful for the job because it paid the bills and gave him a platform, but he also knew he wasn't doing the kind of acting he dreamed of. After leaving the show in the late 70s, Freeman returned to theater and took on small film roles, continuing to build his skills. But Hollywood wasn't paying much attention yet. That started to change in 1987 with a film called Street Smart. In it, Freeman played a tough and dangerous pimp named Fast Black. It was a bold role, very different from the friendly TV characters people had seen him play before. Critics praised his work, and he earned his first Academy Award nomination for Best Supporting Actor. This moment marked a huge turning point in his career. For the first time, people in the industry and the audience started seeing just how talented he really was. Not long after that, more major roles followed. In 1989, Freeman starred in Driving Miss Daisy as Hoke, a black chauffeur working for an elderly white woman in the American South. The film dealt with themes of racism, aging, and friendship over time. Freeman's performance was gentle, strong, and deeply emotional. The movie was a huge success, and Freeman was nominated for another Academy Award, this time for Best Actor. That same year, he also appeared in Glory, a powerful film about black soldiers fighting in the Civil War. Though his role was smaller in that movie, it added to the growing respect he was earning as a serious actor. By the early 1990s, Freeman was no longer just a working actor. He was a true star. He became known not just for the quality of his acting, but for something very special: his voice. Deep, steady, and full of calm authority, his voice became one of the most recognizable in the world. Whether he was playing a kind mentor, a wise leader, or even narrating a documentary, people trusted his voice. It had a sense of truth and wisdom that made him feel dependable and believable in every role. That voice, along with his thoughtful way of speaking and his steady presence on screen, made Freeman the kind of actor people respected instantly. Hollywood's wisest voice. By the early 2000s, Morgan Freeman had become one of the most respected and beloved actors in the world. After years of small roles and slow progress, he was now a leading man in major films. His name on a movie poster could grab attention, and his calm, wise presence on screen made audiences feel something special. A major moment came in 2005 when Freeman won the Academy Award for Best Supporting Actor for his role in $1 Million Baby. The film, directed by Clint Eastwood, told the story of a determined female boxer and her trainer. Freeman played Eddie Dupree, a former boxer who now worked at the gym and served as both a caretaker and a storyteller. His performance was filled with heart, pain, and quiet strength. Freeman's career was marked by multiple memorable roles and accolades, with his awards representing only a part of his lasting impact on the industry. The Shawshank Redemption, released in 1994, became one of his most famous roles. He played Red, a man serving a life sentence in prison who forms a deep friendship with another inmate, Andy Dufresne. Today, it's considered one of the greatest films ever made, and Freeman's role is a big reason why. Then came more hits. In Bruce Almighty, he played God in a humorous but thoughtful way that won over both younger and older audiences. Freeman didn't make the role feel heavy or distant. Instead, he played God as calm, wise, and even a little playful, reminding people once again how powerful his screen presence really was. The role led to a long-standing joke in pop culture that Morgan Freeman was the only person believable as the voice of God. He continued to show his range with roles like Nelson Mandela in Invictus. Playing such a major real-life figure came with a lot of pressure, but Freeman handled it with care and dignity. He spent time studying Mandela's mannerisms and voice, trying to show both the strength and calm leadership that made Mandela so special. The film earned him another Oscar nomination and added another layer to his already impressive career. He also became a part of one of the most successful movie series of all time with the Dark Knight trilogy, directed by Christopher Nolan. Freeman played Lucius Fox, a brilliant inventor and businessman who helped Bruce Wayne behind the scenes. While not the main character, Freeman brought depth to the role and gave the film a strong moral voice. He continued working, appearing in films and narrating stories with the same powerful tone that had become his signature. He was chosen to narrate documentaries, commercials, and even announcements. His voice carried trust, wisdom, and calm. They didn't just hear what he was saying, they felt it. His voice became a kind of symbol for truth and authority, often used when filmmakers or brands wanted to make people stop and think. With all this fame, however, came a shift in Freeman's public image. He was no longer just a talented actor. He was seen almost like a wise guide or a quiet leader. People put him on a kind of pedestal. While that level of respect was flattering, It also created distance. Freeman, who once worked in silence behind the scenes, now had to deal with constant attention. Still, during these peak years, Morgan Freeman became more than a movie star. He became a cultural icon. His work touched people across generations, and his legacy seemed stronger with every role he took. But as with many great stories, the spotlight often hides the quiet struggles happening off-screen. In Freeman's case, those struggles would start to surface in very personal and painful ways. Family struggles and failure. While Morgan Freeman's career was rising to incredible heights, his personal life was much more complicated. Behind the fame, the awards, and the public respect, there were deep cracks in his private world. His relationships, especially with family, have had their share of struggles, heartbreak, and emotional pain. Freeman has been married twice. His first marriage was to Jeanette Adair Bradshaw in 1967. Together, they raised children and tried to build a stable home life, but the marriage ended in divorce in 1979. Like many relationships in the entertainment industry, their marriage was tested by long working hours, travel, and public attention. His second marriage to Myrna Colley Lee began in 1984. Myrna was a costume designer, and for a while the relationship seemed steady. They lived together in Mississippi, away from the Hollywood spotlight. But even this marriage eventually fell apart. After over 20 years together, the couple separated in 2007 and finalized their divorce in 2010. It was a long and difficult process, and while neither spoke much about the reasons behind the split, reports suggested that the separation was painful. Aside from his marriages, Freeman's relationships with his children have also had their challenges. He has 4 children, 2 biological, and 2 adopted from previous relationships. Over the years, he has spoken occasionally about them, but never in great detail. The bonds he shared with them were often kept private, and like many parents with demanding careers, there were likely times when distance and work got in the way of closeness. One relationship, though, did draw attention: his connection with his step-granddaughter, Idina Hines. Idina was the granddaughter of Freeman's first wife, Jeanette, and Freeman helped raise her as if she were his own. She often appeared at events with him and even pursued a career in acting. The two were close, and he supported her emotionally and financially. But over the years, the relationship became surrounded by rumors and tabloid stories, including troubling speculation that they had a romantic connection. Freeman firmly denied those claims, calling them false and hurtful, and said they damaged both his reputation and his relationship with Idina. The most painful moment in that part of Freeman's life came in 2015, when Idina was tragically killed in New York City. She was just 33 years old. Her boyfriend at the time, Lamar Davenport, was later convicted of her murder. The case shocked many, and the details that came out during the trial were deeply disturbing. Freeman released a short statement after her death saying, "The world will never know her artistry and talent and how much she had to offer." It was clear that her death left a permanent scar on him. Though the public saw Freeman continue working, smiling for cameras and giving interviews, there was an obvious sadness beneath the surface. Losing someone you helped raise, someone you loved as family, is a pain that never really goes away. But Freeman, being the private man he is, kept most of that pain to himself. He rarely spoke about the tragedy and the years that followed, choosing instead to stay silent and continue with his career. His ability to keep grief hidden from the public eye matched the way he had always carried himself, with quiet strength. Over time, people began to notice a more withdrawn version of Freeman. He still appeared in films and narrated projects, but he wasn't as present in the media or on red carpets. Fame had given him the ability to live in comfort, but it hadn't protected him from heartbreak. Behind the deep voice and calm presence was a man who had experienced deep loss, failed relationships, and personal wounds that never fully healed. And soon the outside world would bring even more challenges, ones that would change how many people viewed him. The 2018 allegations. In 2018, Morgan Freeman found himself at the center of a controversy that changed how many people saw him. Up until that point, he had built a public image based on trust, wisdom, and calm strength. He had become a symbol of dignity for many. So when serious allegations came out against him, it shook both fans and the industry. The man who had narrated documentaries, played roles like God and Nelson Mandela, and won awards for his performances was suddenly being questioned in a way he never had been before. The controversy began when CNN published an investigative report in May 2018. The report featured accounts from several women who accused Freeman of inappropriate behavior, including unwanted comments, touching, and suggestive actions during professional interactions. Some of these women had worked with him on film sets, while others had encountered him in more casual professional settings. The accusations included unwanted comments, inappropriate touching, and suggestive behavior. In total, 16 people were interviewed for the report, 8 who made accusations, and 8 others who said they had witnessed the behavior or knew about it. The allegations were serious and detailed. One woman who worked as a production assistant on the set of the movie Going in Style said that Freeman repeatedly tried to lift her skirt and often commented on her figure. Another woman said she experienced repeated uncomfortable interactions while working around him. Some of the women who came forward chose to remain anonymous, fearing backlash or damage to their careers. Morgan Freeman responded to the accusations quickly. He released a public statement where he said he was devastated by the report. He apologized to anyone who had felt uncomfortable or disrespected by his words or actions, but he also strongly denied the idea that he had assaulted or harmed anyone intentionally. He said he never meant to make anyone feel uneasy, and that it was never his intention to offend. In a second statement, he said the media had taken his words out of context and combined different stories in a way that misrepresented the full truth. He asked for fairness and said that he supported women speaking out against abuse, but also wanted to make sure that due process was respected. Despite his denials, the damage was already beginning to spread. Freeman lost several brand partnerships, including deals with Visa and other companies that had used his voice in commercials. Narration gigs and voice work, something he had become especially known for, started to slow down. Some projects that had featured Freeman's voice considered making changes, though it's unclear how many documentaries or specific works were affected. The incident also sparked discussions about age, power, and behavior in Hollywood. Freeman was 80 at the time of the allegations, and some people argued that generational differences may have played a role in how he communicated. Others pointed out that respect and boundaries should apply to everyone, regardless of age or status. The entertainment world was already going through major changes due to the #MeToo movement, and Freeman's case added more complexity to the conversation. Some fans defended him, believing the accusations didn't amount to abuse. Others felt disappointed, especially because of the respectful public image he had built over decades. For Freeman himself, the controversy likely had a deep impact beyond his career. He had spent a lifetime working toward respect and credibility, and in a matter of days, that image was put under serious doubt. While he continued to act in a few projects afterward, his public presence noticeably decreased. He appeared in fewer interviews, kept a low profile, and seemed to retreat from the spotlight. Though he never spoke openly about how the scandal affected him emotionally, it's not hard to imagine the toll it took. Losing public trust, even partially, can be incredibly painful, especially for someone who was seen by so many as a role model. The 2018 allegations were a turning point. Whether people believed every detail or not, something had changed in the way the world looked at Morgan Freeman. The controversy cast a long shadow over his career, and even today, the effects of it linger in how he is remembered and discussed. But as public life became more complicated, another challenge was already waiting. One that would affect not just his image, but his physical ability to live as he once had. The accident that changed everything. In 2008, Morgan Freeman's life changed in a way that had nothing to do with Hollywood or fame. On the night of August 3rd, he was driving near his home in Mississippi when his car veered off the road and flipped multiple times. He was with a friend, Demaris Meyer, who was also injured in the crash. The accident happened late at night on a quiet highway, and emergency responders had to use the jaws of life to free Freeman from the wreckage. It was a terrifying scene, and for a while people feared the worst. Freeman was flown by helicopter to a hospital in Memphis, Tennessee, where he underwent surgery for several hours. The crash had left him with multiple injuries, including broken bones in his left shoulder, arm, and elbow. The surgery was meant to reconnect nerves and restore mobility, but some damage couldn't be fully repaired. While Freeman survived the accident, the long-term effects were serious and permanent. In the months and years after the crash, Freeman slowly revealed just how much the accident had changed his life. He developed a condition known as fibromyalgia, which caused severe pain throughout his left arm and shoulder. The nerve damage meant he could no longer move his hand properly, and he lost the ability to use that arm in any meaningful way. He began wearing a compression glove on his left hand, which he still wears to this day. It helps with circulation, but it doesn't restore function. Freeman spoke openly about the pain in a few rare interviews. He admitted that it was constant and exhausting. Even basic tasks became more difficult, and he had to adjust how he did everyday things. For someone who had always carried himself with strength and calm control, the physical limitations were a hard reality to accept. He could no longer sail, ride horses, or do other activities he once loved. The injury also affected how he acted. Directors had to be aware of how to position him in scenes, avoiding movements that would cause pain or reveal the limits of his arm. This part of Freeman's story is often overlooked because he doesn't draw attention to it, but those who look closely can see the difference. The once physically commanding man, known for his tall posture and steady presence, now moved with a little more caution. He often kept his injured hand in his pocket or resting still by his side. And yet, through all of it, he continued working, appearing in films and narrating stories with the same powerful voice that had become his signature. The crash didn't take his life, but it did take a part of his independence. It also reminded people that even legends are human, that beneath the image of strength, there can be quiet pain. Freeman never asked for sympathy, but his honesty about his injuries gave others a glimpse into the struggles he faced behind the scenes. And just as he adjusted to life with a changed body, another battle was quietly growing inside him, one that had nothing to do with fame or physical injury: chronic illness and aging. As Morgan Freeman grows older, his life has slowed down in more ways than just professionally. The man who once stood tall on movie sets, commanding attention with both his voice and his presence, now lives with a constant, invisible weight: chronic illness. For years, Freeman has battled fibromyalgia, a condition that causes widespread pain, fatigue, and tenderness in the muscles and joints. It's not something people see clearly from the outside, but for Freeman, it's a daily challenge that affects nearly everything he does. Freeman has spoken publicly about his condition, though only briefly. He explained that the pain is focused mostly in his left arm and shoulder, injuries that stemmed from his 2008 car accident. But the nerve damage caused by that crash triggered his fibromyalgia. The pain doesn't come and go, it's always there. He described it as sharp and shooting, sometimes feeling like electric shocks that don't stop. It makes it hard to sleep, hard to focus, and especially hard to move around comfortably. Even simple tasks like walking have become more challenging for him. While he still makes occasional public appearances, those who have seen him recently have noticed some changes. He walks more slowly, sometimes requiring assistance, and often keeps his left hand at his side or tucked in his pocket. The black compression glove he wears, similar to the one he wore at the 2025 Oscars, is not a fashion statement. It's used to help with circulation and manage the effects of nerve damage. The glove serves as a subtle but powerful reminder that while Freeman's mind remains sharp, his body no longer functions as it once did. Performing, something that once brought him energy and purpose, has become harder too. The physical pain can be a barrier to long hours on set. Even sitting or standing for long stretches is uncomfortable. Freeman now takes on fewer roles, choosing carefully when and where he works. Voiceover work, once a major part of his career, has also slowed. While his voice still carries the same power and grace, the effort it takes to get through sessions while dealing with pain has made it less enjoyable. Outside of the spotlight, Freeman's life has grown quieter and more private. He lives in a beautiful mansion in Mississippi, surrounded by nature and far from the busy streets of Hollywood. But even with all the space and luxury, there's a sense of isolation. He doesn't appear at many public events anymore. He rarely gives interviews. His social circle has grown smaller, and while he's not completely alone, there's a distance between him and the world he once ruled with ease. Fame can bring people into your life, but it doesn't always keep them there, especially when age and health start to take over. Aging in the public eye is difficult for anyone, but for someone like Freeman, once seen as strong, wise, and almost untouchable, it's even harder. People still expect the voice, the presence, and the calm confidence. But behind closed doors, there's a man facing the reality of getting older with a body that has already been through too much. There's no award for dealing with that. There's no applause for the quiet struggle. But Freeman keeps going, in his own way, doing what he can, with the time and strength he has left. And while his health has taken much from him, there's still one more piece of his story that casts a long shadow, one that touches the very question of how he'll be remembered when he's gone. Freeman's brilliance, however, remains unforgettable. For many, his voice alone can evoke deep emotion. His performances continue to resonate in films that are cherished and revisited time and again. His influence lives on in the actors who followed, many of whom cite him as a source of inspiration, studying his composed delivery and learning from his emotional depth. But at 87, Freeman is no longer creating at the same pace. He now observes the world from a quieter place, one that few get to see. If you found this story insightful, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more in-depth looks at the lives of the stars. Stay tuned for our next video.